Are you still training with Repo, by the way?
I am indeed, and I don't plan to stop.
And who are your coaches, and what have been some of your biggest challenges with wrestling training?
So, I mean, I'll always hype this guy up. Let's first hype up because I also go to the beginners. I mean, a lot of people, I've been training for 2 years. And so, I mean, there's been some people in the training that it's like, oh, I've been training for this long, so I don't need to be going to the beginners.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, that's understandable, but like, I get that you relearn, like, they go over the same things, but why is that such an issue? There's always room for improvement, and especially if you go into beginners, like, you can, if you have that more experience, you can help out, you know, like the others that don't have that experience. And like, that's something that I like doing is, you know, to not only learn and improve on things that I already know, but to help out the others as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, my beginner coach is Dan McGee. Absolutely amazing man.
Rings a bell, the name. I'm not. That's not me going on Wikipedia.
He's done quite a few. He's done quite a few shows. And then my Wednesday coach, who obviously that's for the advanced wrestling, is no other than the half of the first NXT Tag Team Champions, Oliver Gray.
Joel Redman.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Joel.
Nice.
So bigger. You know, my dream's WWE, and I'm being taught how to wrestle by an ex-WWE superstar. I mean, come on.
Can't ask for more. Someone who's been there and literally the first champion.
And he's such a lovely man. He's such a lovely man as well. He's great. I mean, I'll always remember, and a lot of people are like, oh, that's probably not a good thing to remember, but I'll always remember when he accidentally misgendered me. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm a trans female. He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's like, this is wrestling. Like, so many men have long hair these days.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, he's like, I'm like, he never stopped apologizing.
Oh, bless him.
And I was like, oh my God, it's fine. Like, you never met me. You know, I didn't come up to you and be like, oh, hi, you know, I'm a trans woman.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not me, you know. And he never stopped apologizing. And ever since, like, he's always been so kind. He is really nice. Like, I remember when he was first announced to be a trainee, like a trainer, like a coach. Couldn't get my words out. And I was like, oh my God, what if they don't like me because I'm trans? Because you hear so many horror stories about WWE superstars secretly being really homophobic and stuff like this. When I met him, like, that's not the case. Like, Joel Redman's so sweet and so nice. And like, he literally, and this is what I take my hat off, especially as well to Andy Corden, which I'll get onto. Like, he corrected himself straight away. He apologized, and he called me by the right, like, he called me by my name, which was Amber anyway. He called me by the right pronouns all the time, and every session, like, everyone's like, so like, all the guys are like, wow, well done, guys. And then there'll be Joel just being like, and girl. And girl.
I like that.
And then everyone's like, oh yeah, and girl. So, you know, he's really sweet. And that's the same with Andy Corden, who obviously is another coach, as well as being Big Boss Man. I'll always call him Big Boss Man. You actually look very similar as well.
Well, I'll take that as an insult.
Which is mad.
I've actually met him in Southend on a night out.
It's a compliment. It's a compliment. I mean, he runs a very, very successful wrestling company.
I'm Andy Corden now. Love it. It's a good thing I know.
But no, like, even when I first started and I first met Quilden, I was very scared, very timid, because I didn't know about trans people in wrestling. And I remember going up to him, so kind of like in my own not so shy but outgoing way. I'm like, so I'm transgender. I'm wondering where I'd be fighting. Because they don't do intergender matches.
Yeah.
Which I'll always say is a shame, because I'd love to see like Sky Smithson versus JJ Girl or
Oh,
King
okay,
of the
so that's
Pit.
actually by choice. It's not because he hasn't got to booking it yet. He won't do it.
Yeah, because he wants to keep everyone happy, and and I'll take my hats off to him, because even if he doesn't have an intergender match, like he still produces the best matches that I've ever seen in and this isn't me being biased because I work with them. Well, I say work, I train with them, but I'm a guy that speaks the truth. Like if I didn't like it, I'd say.
Yeah.
Even if it means it could ruin my career, I'd say. But no, like they produce some of the best matches, and Andy Quilden, so I turned up to him and he went, so there's only a few important questions. What are your pronouns? So I said she and her. He went, so you identify as a female? I said, yes. Yeah, I'm a woman. That's how I want to be. And he went, well, then you're going to be in the women's division. That's it.
Just like as casual as it can be.
You're part of our women's like team, And I kid you not, I went outside for a little air. I cried. I cried to myself, because it's that first instinct that I went in there being like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me?
Yeah.
What are they going to think? What are they going to say? Where are they going to put me? And it's the fact that Andy Quilden was like, you're a woman. You're on our women's division. End of. And that was like, and this is why, like, there's so many there's closer schools to me. I mean, like Quality, who's literally 2 minutes down the road. But RevPro's home.
Yeah.
Always has. I mean, like, there have been times that I'm like, oh, maybe I'd go check them out. But then I'm always like, no, like, there's nothing against them, but my home belongs with RevPro, because they were so accepting and they're all so loving as well.
Yeah.
And Wednesday we did a really intense workout, and I'm not as fit as like the other wrestlers, but they cheered me on. They kept me, and like they were literally like, come on Amber, you've got this, like you're amazing, let's go. And they literally, and it's because of that encouragement that made me finish this workout. And so I could never see myself with anywhere else.
Because we have mentioned it briefly earlier, is to talk about the one and only match. I actually thought you had a bit more, but maybe I didn't do my research very well. I suck. But anyway, so I'd like to talk about your official debut in wrestling. How was the experience? And how was your family and friends' reaction if they attended? Because I only asked that is because a lot of people told me that they've actually had their friends and family there for their first match. So I'd like to know, basically, if you can tell me the story of your debut.
Well, my friends, my best friend was in it with me, so
okay.
Couldn't ask for better. Because it was a rumble. I mean, most debuts are. I was nervous, very nervous, especially the fact that I was wrestling with Zoe Lucas, who at the time was the women's champion. And I was like, oh my God, what if I mess up? This is like the leader of the women's division right now. But she needed help to, get me out. Spoiler. But no, so I had my family there. My mum, if you've actually watched the video on YouTube, I'll send over the link. My mum was the loudest.
Nice.
Because that's where I get my gob from. My really big Tracy Beacon mouth with my mum. She's literally like, go on, Ava! Literally. And this was literally like one of her first wrestling matches she's actually gone and watched live. And she was so captivated. And she loved it. She mainly embarrassed me because she at the end she was like, "Oh, there's quite a few good-looking men on there, isn't there?" But yeah,
you're here
it
for
was
me.
nervous.
You're here for me, not them.
Yeah, I know, right? It was nerve-wracking until I walked through the curtain, and then it was just like all my nerves just disappeared because at that time. I knew I was making some sort of like history, just in Portsmouth, but I never knew that I was going to make such a big historic debut. And until like people like came up to me and they went, "Do you know what you just did?" I was like, "What? No." Had a match. And they were like, "Girl, you are the first ever transgender woman to wrestle under the Revolution Pro banner. That is huge." I'm like, oh, because I was still
didn't
just filled
sink in,
with
sort of thing.
adrenaline.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, no. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it still hasn't sunk in. But I'm like, was my match really that big? Like, and yet now looking back, and I'm really trying not to cry here. Like looking back, I see that it was that big that I've inspired a friend that I met through TikTok, who's a trans girl, and she came to me and she said, like, you inspired me to pursue my dreams in wrestling.
Yeah.
I never once thought that in Britain a trans girl can wrestle. And you did that, and you did that for me, and I want to thank you. And like I was like tearing up, and I'm trying not to tear up now. I'm so great of an actress that I can stop myself. And that day I was like, I was always captivated, and I've always argued with Andy Corden to let me be a heel. But then this past week, excuse me, this past week, I've seen like the things that I've been doing, and the things I've been saying, and like helping people. I'm like, maybe I'm not a heel. Maybe I could be this baby face that inspires people, and because at first I didn't want the Notorious Angel to be trans. Like the girl behind the gimmick is trans, but she isn't.
Yeah.
But then I thought, you don't get that. You don't really get that anymore. And to me, I think it's very important that in the UK something like that is seen.
Absolutely.
To be that trans beacon. And, because trans representation matters, especially in British pro wrestling. It's something that there isn't a lot of. And it's something that I want to see branch out so much more to maybe, if my wrestling career ever ends, touch wood it doesn't, to actually open up an all trans men and trans women and all transgender promotion. I mean, that's how big I want it to be. I've already designed the ring. The ring's going to be pink, white, and blue. But yeah, no, that's how big that I want it to be. But then I also said, so I can be this trans beacon. I can be the Wonder Woman of the trans community and still be a bad kick-ass bitch. Like, and still kick ass and, you know, smash faces and go places. But when I'm doing that, I'm going to bring up the community with me. So, like, my success is their success. My history making is their history making. You know, like, and so it sunk in, and I'm like, so I'm about to, when I go training Sunday, I'm going to Paul Quild, and I started being like, okay, you're right. I'm a baby face, but I still want to be a bad bitch. I still want to be vicious. I still
you can
want
be a likable bitch.
Gob. I still want. Yeah, I mean Nikki better, right? I could be like Nikki better.
She was great. I think the listeners will want to hear, because you are probably a role model. Despite only having one match, you have the following, as you mentioned as well, and I've seen it myself. Because you're not just trans,
I mean,
I think in general.
Big-headed. I get called big-headed because I'm like,
though.
I'm a role model. I'm an inspiration.
It's even if it just helps one person, you know. I think you deserve to be big-headed. You know, it's good.
Like, I mean, last night I helped, like, I spoke to someone. I just randomly saw their tweet, and they wanted to wrestle, but they were so scared because they felt that they were too young, or well, that they were too old. Sorry.
Yeah.
They were only 17, and you know, like, I was like, hey, my inbox is always open.
Yeah.
You know, I can't give so much advice, but I can give you the advice that I took to start wrestling. So I gave them that advice, and then next minute, obviously I asked, like, oh, do you, like, you know, I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers on Twitter. Once I reach 1,000 followers, I'm actually going to be doing a free merch giveaway. So, and may I also say, when you do buy my merch, 5% of what I make is donated to an LGBT charity called Mermaids.
Okay.
I'll
put that in the description, by the way. I will.
Yeah. So I messaged this person, and then 10 minutes later, I had a formal message request asking for advice. And you know, I'm like, hey, I've got the time. You know, we're in COVID. Why not help people if I can?
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's what I want. But my debut.
The reaction. Tell. Actually, before we talk about the debut, I want to know, when is it that you discovered wrestling, and who were your favorites growing up?
All the time. It's gonna be bloody China.
Don't treat me like a woman.
Don't
treat me like a man.
Oh, don't, because
I love the song. It's so good.
I have even, like, literally emailed the creator of the song, and I'm like, can I buy the rights to use that song?
Nice.
Because not only is it such a great song, but it means a lot to me, especially like being a transgender woman. Don't treat me like a woman, don't treat me like a man, just treat me for who I am. And then words, like, I don't know, I can't speak for any other trans person, but them words mean a lot to myself. And it's even better that China is like a big inspiration, and I will never say that I'm the next China.
No.
But I can guarantee that I'm the next one to carry a legacy like her.
Yeah.
And that's what I want, is to not exactly fill her boots, because no one can fill her boots. You know, as she has said in an interview, there's not another China, and there never will be.
No.
And that's true, but there will be other torchbearers like her. She was such a trailblazer, and Nicole Bass. The men weren't really keen. I mean, I liked The Rock, only because I found him attractive.
I understand. It's fair. He is a good-looking man.
And I'm not into older men either, so I don't know what it was. It's just this, I think it's just the smirk that he does, like the smolder. And I'm
He
like
just
that.
oozes charisma. He was
Yeah.
great.
I like Steve Austin for the men. But my favorite male superstar has actually only just been released, and that's Braun Strowman.
Really? That's fair.
I've loved Braun Strowman. I think he was so underrated.
Mm.
You know, and I mean, all the time, my dream match, my dream WrestleMania match has been myself versus Braun Strowman.
Mm.
Like, you know, because by then I'll be a Goliath. But yeah, I mean, my other would be TJ Wilson, Tyson Kidd.
Ah,
Again,
so underrated.